citizens of the world.
I'm here to change your life.
Anything you want. Anything you dream of, you can have it.
You look like you saw a ghost. Diana, look at you. It's like not one day has passed.
I don't want to be like anyone. I want to be an apex predator.
You've always had everything, while people like me have had nothing. Well, now it's my turn. Get used to it.
I've never been one for rules. The answer is always more. The way I fly, they will never find us.
I forgot to tell you.
What?
Radar.
Will they shoot at us?
Hey everybody, welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devon.
And today we're going to take a look at the first major blockbuster of 2020 and the last. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, kind of. I
think it's the only, well, maybe not blockbuster, the first major superhero film to be released this year. No, Birds of Prey. Damn it.
Or is it a villain?
I was gonna say.
Is she a hero?
I mean,
And Mulan.
it's kind of, well, that's not...
That's like a Disney movie.
We're just taking this again from the top because the hell with it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Hey, everybody. Welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devon.
And today we're going to talk about the first major experiment in Warner Brothers' bet against the theaters with HBO Max.
Wow.
Today we're talking about Wonder Woman 1984. Or is it just 84? I don't know.
I've seen it both ways, really.
I'm just going to go with just 84.
Okay. Wonder Woman 2, the one sequel to Wonder Woman starring Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, and the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal. So this was dropped on Christmas Day on HBO Max, and also in theaters, if you're lucky enough to live in a state where theaters are open. Ryan and I are in Pennsylvania right now, where all the movie theaters are closed, or at least they should be. Some of them are probably not because people like to fight our governor.
Right.
So we all saw this on HBO Max. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
What do you guys think of watching a film like this on a streaming platform?
You know what? I thought it was fun. I think that it was a little bit weird at first because I was like, okay, here's this new movie. I already just pay for HBO Max. Here's all these old movies. I can just watch this new one. But I kind of really loved like being able to be on my couch with my wife and make shitty comments the whole time and not feel like I have to be like locked into like the movie theater like I usually do.
Yeah, I had a little bit of the same experience. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah.
Okay, so so one of the things that I like about being able to stream new movies at home instead of going to the theaters, because we didn't watch this one together. Like Kristen had no interest in it. So, but one thing that that I do enjoy about this whole new concept is like if I miss something, we can rewind it real quick. Where in the movie theater I can't march to the manager and say, hey, I missed that phrase that guy said like 2 minutes ago. Can you just rewind the film?
I mean, you could.
You could try.
There's a name for people like
that
though. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. So before we get into what we thought of the sequel, what did you guys think of Wonder Woman, the first film from 2017?
Well, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's one of the few DC movies I actually bought. Because I did enjoy the first one that I remember. Just because the feel of it. It was better than pretty much everything else that they've made so far, I think. I really liked Aquaman when I first saw it, but then I tried to rewatch it at one point, and I was trying to remember what I liked about it, and I couldn't think of anything, so I stopped watching it.
Really, Aquaman doesn't hold up to a second viewing.
Oh no, not to me. It doesn't. To
Oh,
other
that's a
people,
shame.
probably, but it doesn't to me. Like it's
Okay.
Yeah.
Devin, how
But
about
the
you?
first Wonder Woman did.
Oh yeah, no, the first woman still does. Yeah.
So I liked the first Wonder Woman, and I liked it for a few reasons. One of the big reasons I liked it was at the end, Chris Pine was given a watch, and he was like, I wish we had more time. And if it was a worse movie, just before the plane blew up, he would have been like, more time, and would have like looked at the watch and like wound it backwards and would have like rewound time and saved himself. And it didn't do it. They let Chris Pine die. I thought that was great. I liked the first movie because it did stuff like that. It didn't like fall into the same kind of superhero cliches that it very much could have. I'm saying that now because it's important for later. Trust me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first
I'm-
one. I think part of what the first one has going for it is the first 2/3 of the movie. The third act kind of falls apart because it becomes the same thing that all the DC movies were doing at the time, which is giant beam of light in the sky, dark battle with a CGI villain, because you had the same thing in Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, and then Wonder Woman, you had her fighting the professor from Prisoner of Azkaban.
That's right, yeah.
So the ending kind of fell flat for me. But overall, I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the No Man's Land sequence in the middle of it. And that was like the last time I went to the theater with a big group. Like I was working
wow.
on a feature film at the time, so the one day after wrapping, we all went, cast and crew, went to the theater together and saw Wonder Woman. Friend of the show, Mike, was there, and he hadn't seen a superhero movie in years. He's like, I don't know what the hell I just saw.
That's so funny.
But it was a great time, and I think that's the last time I went with a large group to the theaters, and that was 3 years ago.
Wow.
So, that being said, that's our thoughts on Wonder Woman. What are you guys' thoughts on Wonder Woman 84 without getting into spoilers? Like, general thoughts.
I want to rename this movie to Wonder Woman meets Teen Witch,
Okay?
and I will expand on that later.
Okay?
This movie for me felt like, okay, do you remember Indiana Jones 3?
Yes.
Where there's this scene when he's young Indiana Jones, and he
Yeah.
does one thing, and it's where he gets his whip, his hat, his fear of snakes, all of the things. This movie felt like that for me. This movie felt like a grab bag of, remember this Wonder Woman thing? Remember this Wonder Woman thing? Remember this one? Here they all are. And it was fine. I had fun with the movie. I don't know if I'm going to watch it again.
Okay. If I had to rename this movie, and this isn't my joke, I would rename it Wonder Woman 84 Minutes Too Long.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good things in this movie, but a lot of why did you do that? Like, why is this the choice that you're making for the sequel? Overall, compared to the first one, I think this one falls flat. I have some issues with some things that they did story-wise. I think all the performances are great. I think everyone is giving their A game in this. It's nice to see Kristen Wiig not doing a straight-up target lady for the bad guy. They change it up a bit for her. I think Pedro Pascal does make an interesting Maxwell Lord.
Do you know? Does anybody here know anything about the backgrounds of either Maxwell Lord or Cheetah? Like, does anybody know them at all before this movie?
I've seen
That's her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
okay.
subtitles on, and it said Cheetah.
That's. I mean, I did too, but I didn't really like. She's talking. Their subtitles. Those are her subtitles. Like I don't even look at like who's saying what most of the time.
In my mind,
and
she's Chitara.
I don't know enough about DC villains. Like I was watching this and I'm like, oh, she's like the female or she's like the, she's like the woman version of Craven the Hunter, I guess.
Okay.
Like Craven the Hunter, like that's how I related to her. I was like, oh, she's a human with like animalistic tendencies. Okay, cool. She's an apex predator. Got it. And she magically, from her powers and being able to be granted rage, she grew fur. I don't know.
Yeah, it's it was an interesting choice for her. But as far as Maxwell Lord goes, I had seen him on other DC stuff. He appeared in Smallville at one point, played by two different actors because they had to recast. And I think he showed up on Supergirl.
Is it the same thing though? He like grants wishes?
Not really. It's more of the criminal boss, like kind of like a gangster type thing, like a mobster,
like the Kingpin.
Yeah, kind of like that.
That makes sense.
But for the 80s setting, I think what they did with him makes sense for this film.
Yeah.
And from a few interviews that I saw with Gal Gadot, they weren't going for like a Trump stand-in, but like you have a businessman like that in the 80s, you're going to think Donald Trump. So
That's the first thing I thought, especially when he was like, I'm a TV personality. I'm a businessman. I'm like, that's Trump in the early 90s. That's
Weird.
Trump.
I didn't think about that at all. I didn't even make the connection until someone said it.
Yeah. So you guys didn't know about those two characters at all going in?
No.
No, Romana had told me that Kristen Wiig is Cheetah, and I went, that's going to be a weird choice. But I thought it worked. I liked her in that role.
Yeah, I liked her
Yeah,
too.
She's good in this.
We'll get it.
Usually.
We'll get into the end battle when we get into spoilers.
Good.
So I don't think this is technically spoilers because it's. I'm trying to figure out if we can talk about Chris Pine outside of spoilers or not.
I think that we can talk about the fact that he's in the movie and how he did in it. I don't think we could talk about how he comes back yet, because that is very spoilery. And I thought he was
before we get into all of that, because that is going to get into spoilers. What did you guys think of the film taking place in 1984? Did that add anything to the movie for you? Do you think it needed to be placed in 1984 of all years?
I don't think they needed to name the movie based on the year that it was set in. Like, they just could have done like Wonder Woman 2, like The Dangerous Wish or something, or and like it just could have been set in the mid 80s. Like, they might have had like a calendar that said it was 1984 in the background, but there was no reason for this to be named after the year it took part in. I mean, for crying out loud, this could have taken place in 1979 or 1991, and they could have named it WW91, and you would have had the same thing with Chris, Pine going, "Ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's this?" Which I want a movie just of Chris Pine reacting to futuristic things.
Yes, agreed. Completely agreed.
I don't know if I don't think the 84 setting was absolutely necessary for this movie. I think when you get into the Cold War aspect of that they play with in the third act, I think it's like this is why we're picking the early 80s. Other than that, though, it doesn't really add much except for, hey, here's a centerpiece at a mall.
Right.
That's
like there's
thriving.
like a few like it's like a butt of a couple of jokes. Like, hey, here's a fanny pack. They're cool. Which, by the way, I think Chris Pine's the only person that can still pull off a fanny pack. He rocked it.
This movie is set in 84. Anybody can pull off a fanny pack, Devon.
That's the lie they tell you. But no, I agree.
It's 1984.
I don't think that it needed to be in 84. Like, I think that it was fun. I think the whole like fun and games of the movie was like Chris Pine saying, "What's this? It's weird." But like, it could have been any time, really. I think it felt like somebody watched season 3 of Stranger Things, went, let's have that in our superhero movie. That'll be a cool hook. And they did it.
Do you think you could have told this story in a post-Justice League world, knowing that Batman and Flash and all, like the rest of the Justice League exists in the world? Do you think this movie would have still been what it is if you had other superheroes around instead of just Wonder Woman?
I think that no, because they would have had to have gotten involved somehow. Like the Flash would have had, like, because this seemed like it was like a worldwide thing. It was broadcasting everywhere, and I feel like they wouldn't have like guilt trip. Sorry, I don't want to say that. I feel like the ending would have turned out differently if it was multiple super. This would have been like a Justice League level film because it's a worldwide event.
Okay, so do you think that's the main reason they went with 84? Like, setting it in a different time period.
Okay, so for me, when it comes to the whole, like, I don't understand how Superman didn't get involved somehow. Because, I mean, he's still around. He just isn't out yet as Superman. He's still Clark Kent on the farm, right?
I think he's still a kid, right?
I don't think he's on Earth yet.
I was wondering that.
No, but it's 1984. Justice League is, or like Man of Steel is set, what, 2006? 2007?
2013.
2013. Clark Kent is on Earth in 1984.
I think he's still a baby at that point, though.
He's too young. Because how old do we think he is in Man of Steel? Because he seems like he's about 20s.
At 25?
I want to say he's in his late 20s. So
yeah, so he's in his late 20s. He's like single digits in 84.
Okay, that's fine. I feel like there should be more people in the DC universe. There should be more. Granted, I know it's the DC movie universe, so everything just could be starting up now. But I mean, the one thing about DC that I appreciate is the fact that they take a lot from like ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient European history, and turn half of it into reality. Mm-hmm. With a worldwide event like this, there's got to be more special people like Wonder Woman trying to figure out what's going on.
And you know what they might have been?
So to me, in this universe, it makes no sense for a worldwide event to happen, even in the 80s, and only have one person trying to fight it.
Well, I think part of it is that she's the one directly involved in it. Like, she knows about the MacGuffin that's causing everything, so that's why it's hers. And she's working independently, so she doesn't have a phone number where she can call like Martian Manhunter or insert
Atlanteans?
Golden Age hero here.
Yeah.
So,
not even her reaching out, just somebody like showing up or something along those lines, or
I just think
somebody contacting her.
I think it might have taken too much time. Like, let's say the Atlanteans were still around, which I think they were. Like, the Aquaman would have been like, okay, something weird's going on in the world. I'm going to investigate. And, you know, by the time it got to him, they had already it was already like phase 3 or the end game of the evil plan. So it would have taken too long for him to figure out like, oh, I got to get to DC now.
Well, and the other thing is, like, if you look at if you look at Atlantis, they don't want anything to do with the human world. Like, they flat out say that in Aquaman. They don't want any involvement in anything that goes on the surface. So they wouldn't get involved.
That's a good point, though. Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think there could be. There's room enough in my brain for there to be other DC superheroes doing stuff right now, and we just didn't see them on screen. And like, in the same way that Bruce Wayne was at that destruction of the building for Man of Steel, we just didn't see it in Man of Steel. We saw it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, all of that's possible. It's a movie set in a DC universe where fans can have their way with it. So, I mean, I'm fine with all of that. It's just for how long this movie is, and for the DC universe that we've seen so far, I was just figuring at some point that somebody was going to make a cameo. Like, I was waiting for someone to make a cameo in this, and not the original Wonder Woman after the movie had ended. Which I heard. I'll stop. Sorry, I was ranting.
Yeah,
I was ranting.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, we're not in spoilers yet, so I've got to cut that.
Oh no.
So.
Okay, so what about the movie made it feel long for you guys? Like, without going into spoilers, did some sequences go too long? Do you think there were unnecessary sequences in general? Because I think if I had to pick, I'd say some of them just went on too long.
Some of them went on too long, and the first act spends a lot of time building up to nothing. There's a lot of, we're going to linger on this shot for a long time, and you'll get payoff for this eventually, but we're just going to stay on this so you remember that there's a watch here. And we're going to show you all of these pictures, and so it's a lot of build up. What made it feel so long for me is like, okay, we were watching it, and I felt like we're about halfway through the film, just pacing wise, and we had to pause it to go get food or something, and we had an hour and 45 minutes left. I'm like, good God, this is long. I did not expect that. And in the theater, I wouldn't have known that. But just knowing that, like going back into it, I'm like, oh God, like this is really long.
Do you think like streaming might have hurt it a little bit?
No, I think,
Okay.
I don't think that's the problem with it. I think it's more of a pacing issue with the especially the first act itself.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I can't agree with that a little bit because a little bit into the first act, I like turned to Romana and I'm like, there's no conflict here. Like people are just kind of doing stuff.
Yeah, and I think opening on Themyscira was great. I love that whole opening competition thing that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, it just really slows down. Like it's just like, hey, look, we're in the 80s and Wonder Woman's flying around like she's Spider-Man with a whip.
All right, I'm going to say it. This is going to be mean, but I didn't like the action sequences in this very much. Maybe I liked them in the first one. I don't know what they did differently, but she just did too much sliding or something. Like there was a couple of sequences, especially in one of the opening fight scenes where like she's just like skating around, like not really walking. And I was like, I don't know, it just like rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know why. Did you guys have that or am I just weird?
No, you're not the only one. Like there, here, I'll give you a prime example. She's running between tanks in Egypt. And her body's going like crazy, 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 crazy. But then her head's like, interesting. Like her face is so like loose and like non-stressed. And she's running at like 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. And there's not even like wind tension on the skin. And like, this isn't like a critique of her. Like this is just a physics thing. Like, she's, like running, and then she's like, is the one tire flat on that tank? Like, it was just one of those things where it was that and the whole sliding thing. But I also felt like there were a lot of scenes that could have just been, like, shortened in this. Like, I watched this movie on my phone, and I was wearing headphones. And there was a lot of lingering shots where they were focusing on what people were saying in the background, but the subtitles weren't catching it. As far as I'm concerned, if there's not a subtitle for something and you want to focus on it, don't. Mm-hmm. If you're going to focus on something, put subtitles with it. And I wouldn't have caught this if I wasn't using subtitles.
So you watched it on your phone?
I watched it on my phone because I asked you a question so I could get it on my Xbox. You must have been doing something else. And I was like, this movie's so long, I need to start watching it now. So I watched it on my phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry about that. Devin, what was your setup like for watching it?
Oh, it was my living room TV. I was eating breakfast and actually having a really great time watching it.
Nice. We watched it in our living room on our TV, but we just got new speakers for our sound system.
Oh.
So we had like theater quality sound, and it was awesome.
That sounds so
Not
cool.
what we got the speakers for. We got them for our turntable so we can listen to records. But I was like, oh, wait, I can connect the TV to this. And then look at that.
That's so nice.
Totally wasn't my intention, but it worked out great.
Good
do we want to get into spoilers now?
I think we should.
We have to, because everything else I want to talk about.
Same for me.
All right, so if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 84, now's the time to tune out, and then we will be getting into spoilers. So come back if you haven't seen it, and then here we go. Spoilers. So I think this movie could have also been called Wonder Woman When You Wish Upon a Stone.
Yes,
Wonder
absolutely.
Woman, the Bad Witch. Wonder Woman, the Bad Wish.
What did you guys think? What did you guys think of the whole wish aspect of this?
I hated it. I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. Like, ooh, a wishing stone. Like, ooh, I wish I had coffee. Oh, look at that. I have coffee. And I'm thinking to myself, this can't be this simple. Really? Are they really going this way? And they did. And I have to admit, it created a very interesting storyline, but the premise it's based on, in my opinion, is super... This is the first time you'll ever hear me say this. I'll probably say it again going into the future. But to me, this is lazy writing.
Wow.
I don't know if this is based on something real because I've never read the DC comics. I'm not a DC person. But to me, outside of all of that, and this just being a film, that's lazy because that's too easy.
Devin, what did you think?
Okay, I think that I didn't have a problem with it being like a wish or whatever, and like the like god of mischief or whatever was doing it. Fine, it's DC. The first guy in the first one was a god or son of a god or whatever. What bothered me about it was the mechanics of how the wishes worked, which I think confused me every time anyone made a wish. So like Cheetah made a wish that she was like Gal Gadot. And then like halfway through, she's like, I want to be better than human. And like, was the wish still working and she could just keep changing it? Like, and for some people, it happened instantly. So like the one guy was like, I wish we had more nukes. And then they had more nukes. But for some people, it happened in a realistic and gradual way. And for some people, it just like appeared. And then like when Pedro Pascal was the stone, like he could set the bad terms for the wish, but how were the bad terms set when it was just like, I was so in the freaking weeds with this wish thing. It just bothered me the whole time.
Yeah, the whole consequences of the wish shiz was strange to me because Pedro Pascal had way too much power when it came to I get your oil and I get your security team. Like that's a lot. Like and it didn't really make sense to me that he was able to set those terms himself. I feel like the stone should have like even though he is a stone, it just felt weird that he was able to set the terms of conditions, like terms of use.
See, to me, and this is exactly what I was talking about, and as soon as he was like, I want to be you, or I want to be the stone, and he became the stone, and then he started doing that type of stuff, I took my white towel of reasoning and threw it into the ring, and I just went with it. Because the whole point of it is that, like, the stone takes something that is equally as important to you. So, like, for Wonder Woman, she wishes for Chris Pine back, gets Chris Pine back, but her powers leave. Because to the stone, or to her, the way that she perceives herself, her powers are as much as, means as much to her as Chris Pine did. So to get one, she has to give up the other. So I feel like the stone made it even. But as soon as Mr. Lord, which I find funny that his name is Lord, because I kept on thinking of like, religion type stuff, was as soon as he got that power, the way I see it was that people can make a wish and then he can take whatever he wants from them as payment. So I mean, like, whatever that is. And then when he said the whole thing about the oil, and then he was like, I sold all my oil to the Saudis. I don't have any oil. And he's like, fine, I'll take your security team as, like, payment. Which was, okay, fine, but what I really would have wanted was a few times where, like, a Secret Service agent, part of his security team, somebody was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. It just seems right. And then they do whatever they were commanded to do. And when it comes to the thing about, like, some wishes happen gradually, some wishes happened right away, like, I didn't understand either. And again, like, this is where I threw my white towel into the ring and just went, whatever, I'm just going to go with it.
So
I complained a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I complained a little bit during the movie, and I was like, this is too magic-y for me. I was like, what? Like, and I was like thinking, like, oh, well, I said, I was like in my head, I was like, oh, well, Doc, the whole Marvel universe isn't as magic-y as this, and that's why I have a problem with this movie. And Romana goes, she literally has a magic lasso. They tell you it's going to be magic. And I'm like, all right, it's a good point.
Yeah, so the magic aspect didn't really bother me as much because that is something that exists in the DC universe and even Marvel to a point. So the wish thing kind of made sense to me. It felt like a story that you would read in a comic book. Like the bad guys get the stone and they start granting wishes for everyone. So I accepted it for that. It just got to be a little bit repetitive when he's just granting wishes every single line. Like shaking everyone's hand and like, which is weird in 2020, just seeing somebody go around shaking hands like that. The weirdest thing for me was the Chris Pine aspect. Like the whole Steve Trevor taking over somebody else's life, like somebody else's body, which was just bizarre to me. What did you guys think of that? Because I have some issues with it, and I'm curious to hear what you guys thought of that.
If nukes can just appear out of nowhere, and if security teams can just be taken over, why can't Chris Pine physically come back on his own? This movie creates a lot of boundaries that don't make any sense with other boundaries.
I think mine is more like the existential horror of it all. I think that Steve makes it very clear he was in heaven. Like, for real, heaven is a place. He was there. He said, I was someplace. I can't describe it. It was good. He got ripped out of heaven and put into some other person's body. What happened to that person?
Yeah.
And, like, I know that at one point, like, Diana was like, all I see is you. Was that, like, internally? Like, I don't know. Because I know that everyone else could see other guy.
The way they film it, like the way they film that reveal is he's not Chris Pine, but she sees him as that, but everyone else sees this other guy.
Yeah.
And what's really weird about it to me is like the whole time, for most of the film, she's like, I can't repent my wish because I can't lose you again. Not even thinking about what's happening to this other guy. Like she just completely ignores all of the ramifications of this other guy, which doesn't feel like Wonder Woman to me. Like she's so obsessed with, and I don't want, obsessed is a bad word, but she's so in love with Steve Trevor that she's not thinking about that other guy, which seems out of character for her.
No, it's the 80s, and the majority of the country voted for Reagan back then. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Hold on. So wait, was the president, was that Reagan? Because
that was supposed to be Reagan, and that was the most
because,
awful interpretation of Reagan I've ever seen in any film ever.
Because I was looking,
it wasn't even a jelly bean joke.
I was looking for somewhere where it like said Reagan, and it didn't. And then like even the subtitles just called him President of the United States. They didn't call him Reagan, and I was like, is it just like, is this just such a bad impression that he's someone else?
I got more Nixon vibes from him than anything.
Right, kinda.
The way that I see it is that this movie is like, there is so much in this film that is not grounded in reality. But the stuff that is grounded in reality is just enough that the president should be Reagan. And the fact that it was an older, over-the-hill white guy with the comb hair that he had, that should have been Reagan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they intentionally didn't go for Reagan, but it's the mid-'80s. You do Reagan. You do not do Reagan unless you do a complete alternate reality.
Yeah.
So
okay.
the movie does do something that I thought about, that I thought was interesting, that I think any other superhero movie would have done. At some point, they make her lose her powers. They did this a little bit in Iron Man 3. And another, maybe different superhero movie would have made her realize that it's not the powers, it's her. It didn't do that. It's all the powers. I don't know if I like that.
Well, I mean, but it's truth.
It is, though.
And that's what the core of this movie is. Tell the truth. Be a good person.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the moral of the story of this movie.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up because that actually confused me. was the bad guy lying or was he just granting wishes? Because like at some point he's like, all right, I'm a liar.
He was lying to himself, from what I understood. He was lying to his
Okay.
son about what kind of person he was. Like in his mind, he built up that I'm a good guy. Like I am worth all of this money. I am successful. But in the end, at the end, you see all of these flashbacks of his life growing up and how he twisted the truth in parts and was lying to his son. Like he wasn't a success. Like he was betting on this stone to get him everything that he wanted. So
Yeah, I guess that makes sense then, because he was. Yeah, they did show that he was looking for the stone for a while. Yeah. Okay. I guess that makes more sense to me now.
I mean,
yeah,
he's
go ahead.
one of the parts of this movie that I like. It's like I really like his character because I like where he came from. I like what he was trying to do. I like the inner conflict that he had. The funny, I actually like the villains in this more than I like anybody else as characters.
Yeah.
Well, the film does an interesting thing, and I think part of the reason they set it in 1984 is because you have 3 different 80s movies going on. You have the Fish Out of Water with Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, which is kind of a flip on what they did in Wonder Woman, where she was like trying on the clothes and being new to the world of man. Here you have him new to the world of the future. And then you have Cheetah's story, the Kristen Wiig story, where she's transforming and becoming like more of a powerful person than a pushover like she was before. And then you have the Maxwell Lord stuff where he's just granting wishes, and like that seems like an 80s movie in and of itself.
Okay, so yeah, and I really want to get into what I mentioned when we first started this.
Go
Wonder
for it.
Woman meets Teen Witch. Have either of you seen the movie Teen Witch that was made in the 80s?
No.
Is that the one with Tim Curry?
What?
No, never mind. No, I have not, obviously.
Okay. So Teen Witch was a 80s teen movie, obviously, because it said Teen Witch. And Kristen has been watching this movie off and on since she was a kid. And I find it extremely entertaining. It's a teenage girl from suburbia who is not popular, and she wants to be popular. And she looks like Kristen Wiig as a teenager. Skinny, tall, blonde. She's kind of pretty, but she's not fashionable pretty for the mid 80s. And she's upset that she isn't, that like she's unpopular, nobody likes her, she's kind of a pushover, and then she finds out that she's a witch. And the first thing she does is wish to be popular. And the entire first act or act and a half of this movie, where Kristen Wiig is talking about how Deanna is so cool and she's so strong and she wants to know what it's like to be her, and then getting the wish and then getting the powers and waking up in her office and being pretty. Like, I feel like they completely ripped off the character from Teen Witch and gave Kristen Wiig that character from the movie, because I mean it is exact.
I think
scary.
a lot of what they pull from this is like, I think a lot of this is influenced by movies from the 80s like that. You can even say that there's a little bit of Indiana Jones with the Egypt stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, one of the things I kept hearing
definitely.
about the movie was that like this like harkens back to the old-timey superhero movies. Like this is an old-fashioned superhero movie. Like that's what this is. I don't know if I understood that. Is it maybe they're calling back to like the 80s superhero movies again and they're paying homage to them?
I mean, I don't know why you would.
Good point.
I'm thinking, like older superhero movies. I'm thinking of the original Superman films, and that's all I can think of.
Yeah, and this is maybe as close a bit to Superman 3, but why would you want to emulate Superman 3? Like, I love Richard Pryor, but no. Like,
I don't know. I'm just there was just something about the movie that like it looked like it did pay homage to 80s movies, and that was cool. It also looked like it was trying to cash in on nostalgia a little bit, but it just took it from the wrong places, I guess.
yeah, I think that's fair. What was nice about the first film taking place in World War I is that's not something you see on screen that often.
Right.
But I think we've mentioned a few things that have taken place in the 80s that have come out in the last few years, like Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of weird to like 80s nostalgia to a point gets tiresome. And I feel like the movie suffered from that a little bit. Like I love the 80s. And not just on VH1. The 80s is a great time period to go to, but I don't think everything needs to be set in the 80s.
This movie was the first piece of 80s nostalgia that actually made me say, I don't think I would have liked to live in the 80s. Particularly when she went to that party, I went, I don't like this.
Yeah. Okay, so
Party?
Yeah. Where like the like gala event or whatever.
Okay, so what about that turned you off for the 80s?
It was like the very like the part of it I wouldn't like. It was like garish, and it was like I don't know. It wouldn't have. I feel like I would not have liked a party like that.
Because to me, I didn't see any difference between that and like the first time Batman or the gala that Wonder Woman was at when she meets Bruce Wayne.
Really, you
like,
saw no like. It wasn't like the neon
there's
colors.
No difference. I mean,
really?
to me, there's no different. I mean, styles. Yes, there were neon colors. I wasn't really looking at the background, but I mean, like, to me, when it comes to like business casual or like media events, to me, nothing's really changed except for tech. So it's interesting to me that you would mention that is what makes you not want to live in the 80s and not like. I don't know, the fact that cars weren't crash tested the way that they are now, or that
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I find it funny that that's your like. I don't want to live in the '80s. Galas suck. I don't want to.
For me, it's more of the social climate, like just people being dicks, like
Yeah.
like some of the attitudes that you see in this movie towards women are very hard to watch because it's the 80s.
But very real.
Yeah. And we're not perfect nowadays, but it was much worse in the 80s. And I think the film shows a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, when they were walking, like, especially when Deanna was walking through that party, she was just harassed the whole time, I think.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't a single, like, time where she was allowed to just be her. Which, like, ew.
And nope, not going to say it. Hell with it. I'm going to say it. And she just got off the reshoots for Justice League with Joss Whedon. So why'd you have to put her through that again? Like,
Oh, no.
Okay. So I have a major gripe with this movie.
Okay.
And I'm curious if you guys picked up on this because I don't think you did. Mm-hmm. But I have an issue with the soundtrack. And I talked about this a little bit with the our friends over at Victims and Villains on their writers group chat. The scene where Diana learns to fly.
Yes.
Did you guys recognize that music?
No, I didn't actually.
Well, you are on your phone. So that music was from another film. That music was from another film.
It was from another one. Was it?
Yes.
So I know they pulled at least the Wonder Woman theme whenever she was like kicking butt. Like that was from the first one.
Okay, well, let's talk about the score for a second. They brought back Hans Zimmer, who after Batman v Superman said, I'm retiring from superhero films. I'm done with this. And then he's come back to do Dark Phoenix and now Wonder Woman 84. So there was a video released a few weeks ago of Hans Zimmer with his band, like rehearsing the theme from the beginning of the film. And Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot come in and like, oh, you can't take that Wonder Woman theme and make it majestic. And he's like, watch me. Because he's Hans Zimmer. So it's a really cool video. I loved his theme in this. Like, I love how he took that Wonder Woman theme and expanded it for this film and made it more majestic. Hi, Romana. he made the score. He redid his theme to Wonder Woman from Batman v Superman and brought it in and made it more majestic and more of a superhero theme. So you get Hans Zimmer to do this movie, and then you have this, what is meant to be this iconic scene with Wonder Woman learning how to fly, and they pull the score from the movie Sunshine.
Really?
And this score has been used before in other films. I know it from Kick-Ass. If you guys know Kick-Ass at all, the scene where Big Daddy dies.
Oh yeah.
It's the music from that. It's the same music, less piano in this version. But I'm like, you have Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Did he just not want to write like a superhero learning to fly theme again because he did it in 2013 for Man of Steel? Like, why are you pulling from something else? It seemed so bizarre to me, and it took me out of it.
Is there a connection between the person who wrote that theme and the original Wonder Woman TV show?
No.
So there's no connection between the authors of that original music and superheroes in general.
I don't believe so, no.
Like, it's not even like a good callback, because that's such a weird choice.
Mm-hmm.
I have issues with the theme song for Wonder Woman anyway. So
Why?
I don't like it. To me, it doesn't fit.
Like her like theme in this, or like the original TV show?
I don't like it. I don't feel like it fits her. It's I don't know. Like it to me, it's not her theme. Like I don't like. It's almost like, let's do a metal rock theme, but not really metal. Let's make it hard rock, but let's put some metal in there. Nah, that might be a little bit too much metal. Let's turn down the metal, let's turn up the rock, and then let's throw some synth and some like techno in there a little bit. And like, I don't like it.
That's weird. I actually like it.
I would rather it
thought
just
cool.
be like an orchestra or something.
So Ryan, did you enjoy the revamped version of it for this film?
It was a little better, but there were times that they used it that was just jarring. Like, again, in Egypt, when she jumps out of the car and she's running it into the tanks, and she's doing that head nod thing that I was mentioning before.
Yeah.
They play it like it starts, and like it punches you in the face.
Okay.
Like there's no build up to it.
All right.
I think part of the reason why I don't like it is how they use it.
Okay. So I have one more question about this movie. And
Okay.
have we all been to the Smithsonian?
Yes.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not an airfield at the Smithsonian, right?
No, there's definitely not. I did not know where that came from.
Because this has happened before in movies, and I'm very confused by it. Because when Diana and Steve Trevor go to take the jet, which is a whole nother can of worms. Like, how can he fly a jet?
Yeah.
Supposedly they're at the Smithsonian, and she goes into the airfield and takes the jet. But there's no airfield at the Smithsonian unless it's off-site, like outside of D.C. somewhere.
Right, like he can't just take, and like, I don't know.
I'm Googling.
Good. That scene, while we're talking about it, does the one thing that I hate that superhero movies and magic movies do, is they go, I'm going to introduce this thing that's going to save our lives a second before it does it. Like, if they had talked all last movie about her struggling to make things invisible and it never worked out, and then she, like, tried again earlier in Act 1, cool. But she didn't. She's like, here's a power you never knew about me, now it's happening.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I have something. Sorry, that's my pay attention to me dance. This is directly from their website. Mm-hmm. The Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum maintains the world's largest and most significant collection of They have an airfield.
Okay.
They have an airfield. Wow.
The museum's 2 buildings house aircraft. I saw it in the summary on Google, and then I clicked on here, and now I'm not
and
finding
it's gone.
anything. Anyway, they do have an airfield. They do have an airport type thing. When I was down for management training, because I knew they had something. When I was down for management training in the Dulles area, there is a second Smithsonian Air and Space Museum building that looks like an airport. And when you go in there, they have a collection of like every significant like plane and like spacecraft or like a model of it. And they have an air traffic control tower. Now, granted, I didn't go to the back of the building, so they might have like a short airstrip, but there is a hangar.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Well,
I'm wrong.
I
then.
still find it BS that Steven would know how to fly a freaking jet.
I'm not
being a
even
World
touching
War I
that with a
fighter
can of
pilot. Are you
worms. Like, I'm
Well,
not
yeah,
touching that. I'm not touching that. Like,
Again, boundaries in this movie don't make sense because
Yeah.
they're constantly changing the goalposts.
so the other film that I know does that, like, we're in the Smithsonian, then we're in an airfield, is Transformers 2.
Oh yeah.
Like, they run out of the Smithsonian, and then they're in the middle of an airfield in the desert, which is weird.
Well, I mean, they
Michael
do
Bay
say
logic.
roll out and they turn into vehicles. So maybe it's time lapsed. Like maybe they did the cannonball run from DC to the Arizona desert.
You're giving Michael Bay too much credit.
I am not. I am giving Michael Bay just enough credit that he needs for it to be rational.
While we're on the invisible jet sequence, before we wrap this up, I do think that's the one sequence that suffered from watching it on TV. I think
agree.
seeing them flying the jet with the fireworks going off and the colors would have been really cool to see on the big screen. Kind of not as great on a television. Probably not great on a phone either.
I would agree if the build up to that scene was worth it, and it wasn't.
I liked the sequence a lot. I think the weird part for it for me was that they would do this thing where they'd go, okay, this is our next objective. And I go, yes, they have a plan. They have an objective. They go, hold on. We got to show Steve some 80s stuff first. Where they were like, we got to go find out why that stone made you alive. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, let's go take a tour through things you don't know about the 80s yet. And I'm like, but I want to see the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are two things in this. One, the depiction of DC when they were showing him like the subway and they were going under that round building that's in Washington DC. I don't know its name, but it looks like a donut. And they walk under it, and he looks at the trash can thinking that it might be art. And then going into the Air and Space Museum, there's more connection in that sequence to the Division video game than in reality, because that's set in DC. That's the only time I'm going to touch on that. The second thing, I kind of forget already, but yeah, whatever.
They made DC look very clean and very, very like forested in this, which was a good job for them. Yeah.
Yeah, they made it look a lot cleaner than it actually was in the mid 80s.
Is there anything else we want to touch on quick before we wrap this up?
I just think the villain had the best story arc, or had the best character arc of anyone in this.
Okay.
I think that's the only thing I have to say.
This is the first time I saw Kristen Wiig in something that I actually liked her in.
You know, challenge accepted. I might have something for the list that you might like her in.
Because I don't like her comedy.
It's not a comedy.
I'm not.
It's
Good.
not a comedy. And it has Bill Hader. That's all I'll say. So, looks like Wonder Woman 84 was a hit over the weekend. And Warner Brothers has been said to be moving full steam ahead with Wonder Woman 3. What do you guys want to see from a third Wonder Woman? Do you want to see them bring back Steve Trevor again, or...
Chris Pine is dead. Let him rest.
Steve Trevor is dead. Chris Pine is well alive. Don't you do that to my Captain Kirk.
I think I want
Steve,
Wonder
Chris
Woman.
Pine, one and the same.
I think I want Wonder Woman to learn something, and not just use what she knows to teach everyone something else. I think, like, I want like an actual like, yeah, I want like a challenge to her character. Like, I want someone to be like, what you've been doing is wrong for these reasons. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Do you want to see it in a different time period set before Justice League, or do you want it post Justice League?
Yeah, I want to see post. Are they planning on doing anything post Justice League? By the way.
TBD. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
To be
I'd like
fair,
to see it after.
To be fair, I don't think they know what they're doing yet. So, because there were rumors that Zack Snyder might get his Justice League sequel. There are rumors that people are pushing for Ben Affleck's Batman project to go to HBO Max. So who knows what's going on? Like DC is such a mess right now. Mm-hmm. But hey, we got two DC movies this year and 0 Marvel movies from the MCU. I'm not counting New Mutants.
I want Wonder Woman I want a Wonder Woman movie to be set in the mid-early millennium, and I want the challenge to be, should I be living in the U.S.? Because, I mean, she's from a mythical island of godlike women. So, I mean, her culture is completely different than really any other country on the planet. So, even if she was living in Britain, Devon, or if she was living in Canada, to the non-existent, to a possible fan in Canada that we have, she would run into issues, between her culture and, generally ours. So I would like to see a one where she questions, the way that she was raised compared to what she's seen everybody doing. Because I mean, at some point, her being the only one off the island of her kind dealing with our mayhem, she's got to question something at some point.
I mean, I don't think she lives in the U.S. in Justice League. I'm pretty sure she lives in Paris.
Oh.
So
why is she living in Paris? I
because
want
she
that
works
story.
in
What?
museums.
You know what? You're being, you're being way too rational for. You were thinking about her character way too rationally for the movie that they just released.
I'm talking about Justice League, which is not a rational movie.
It's not? I'm so excited to see this movie, you guys.
Oh, I am so dreading that we have to make you watch the Joss Whedon Justice League before Zack Snyder's cut.
Are you going to have to do that, or am I going to watch the Snyder cut first?
I'm so torn on what to do. I'm so torn.
No, he's watching the original cut first, and then watching the next one.
Okay.
I think you have to watch the Joss Whedon one to appreciate what the Zack Snyder cut will be.
Okay. I'm on board.
So, real quick before we wrap this up, the one thing we did not talk about, because I cut it out of the episode because Ryan jumped the gun, post-credit scene. What did you guys think of Linda Carter's appearance?
Useless.
Why?
It should have been in the movie.
It was in the movie.
Put guest appearance with her not being in the actual freaking storyline, not some like skit.
She was in the storyline. It was her armor.
What part? What? It was her? It was supposed to be her. The one, it was her armor? When did they say that? When did they make that connection?
When she tells Steve Trevor the story of the armor. Yes, they mention her by name, and she says that she's been looking for her, but hasn't been.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a brief blink and you miss it thing, but they do mention her.
As a casual watcher, which a lot of people are, there are more people who watch these superhero movies who don't read the comic books and don't know these characters that well to have that loose of a connection.
I mean,
I'm serious.
It's not a comic book thing. They mention her by name in the movie. It's her armor, that Goldar armor that she uses to fight Kristen Wiig from Cats, is her armor. Like, that's...
They do not do a good enough of a job saying that. If it's just a name drop that takes place like in the middle of the film, which apparently
it's not just a name drop,
I know
though.
exactly what you're talking about.
It's not a name drop, though. They do a flashback to when she had to defend the Amazons.
I saw a green
man.
eye. I saw a green
Yeah.
eye. That was it. Is that the connection you're making here?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
No,
That
that's what it was. Like, just because
so
you watched it
wanna
on your
swear
phone and
right
didn't pick
now.
up on it.
I so want to swear right now. No, that came off as an after-credits scene. Okay? It wasn't even after the credits. It was after the movie ended, and then they have a woman in a blue dress walking along and catching a telephone pole, and she goes, "Oh, it's a weight balance thing. It's okay. I've been doing it for a long time," and smiles and walks away, and I'm like, this is the guest star appearance that I heard about? I heard that she was going to be in it. She wasn't in the actual movie. It was an after-movie skit, and you're telling me that I should have caught this by a green eyeball?
No, the payoff is the post-credit scene. You're not supposed to pick it up then. You're supposed to be like, oh, I wonder if that's something that they're setting up for the sequel. And then they give you that closure at the end of the movie.
That's great if you know the Wonder Woman character inside and out, but the majority of people who watch this movie aren't, like me. There is no real explanation for that. I guarantee that if you do a poll, a political polling, and just ask people at random, they would have no idea that the woman in the gold armor that got killed supposedly by the 300 men was her at the end.
Devin, did you pick up on this or not?
So I knew, like, Linda Carter's her name, right? I knew her and knew she was in this movie and knew that was her because my dad loved her version of Wonder Woman. So I knew that was her. I almost thought I heard it wrong in the part that Alan's talking about because she does say, I'm in DC looking for her. Or, like, that's why I moved here to look for her. And that's why she, like, has the armor. So I knew she was in DC, but I almost thought I heard that part wrong because I was like, didn't they just show her die? So that did show me that she didn't die and I didn't hear that part wrong. But I also knew who that was.
Did you know that the one in the gold armor was supposed to be Linda Carter?
Not when they showed me after the post-credits.
You're not supposed to know when they show you, Ryan.
Right, exactly,
that's
right.
the whole point of the payoff of a post-credit scene.
Okay, but here's my second part of that. So Devin, you didn't know that when they were describing that was supposed to be Linda Carter. Okay, you didn't know that. They didn't
during the
say
movie.
During the movie. Yes.
Right.
What in that after movie skit connected it for you?
That I knew that Linda Carter was Wonder Woman, and that was who I was watching. Like, I knew that the lady that walked past was Linda Carter, a.k.a. Wonder Woman, the one that my dad loved. And I'm like, oh my God, that's who that is. Got it.
Okay, and she says her name at the end, too.
What'd you say?
She says her name. She says her name at the end. She's the warrior from the flashback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was when I first picked on. I was like, oh, that's who they did. Like, and then they said it.
Yeah, no, sorry. I can't.
I'm sorry. I'm
sorry. That's fine. I liked it too. I'm just extremely disappointed that her appearance didn't happen in the actual storyline. Because that's what really ticked me off.
Would you have liked it? Would you have liked it, Ryan, if she showed up for the last battle and they had a co-Wonder Woman battle? Like, was that the kind of payoff you were looking for?
No, it was a very confusing, vague connection. In a 2.5 hour long movie, you make a statement an hour and a half in a movie that's almost 3 hours long, and then you take that vague statement that the majority of people who are watching this movie are going to throw away because it has nothing to do with the main storyline except for the fact that it's armor. And then you bring up that name again, which these names are they're not simple to remember just offhand, just hearing it once.
By your logic, Nick Fury showing up at the end of Iron Man would not make sense.
It wouldn't, but you told me about Nick Fury, and I was expecting it. Like how Devin was expecting...
Who told you about Nick Fury? Like in
in Iron
Man?
Because I didn't care about spoilers back then.
Okay. Well, no, I'm just saying, okay, whatever. We're done with this.
No,
we're done.
I'm serious.
This is the end of the show.
This is coming from a point of view. From somebody who's not in this stuff. You are. So to you, this makes perfect sense.
Okay, no, I had never heard of that character before. I did not know Linda Carter was going to be in this, so I was surprised by that. The fact that you guys read it on the internet sucks to be you, I guess.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
I didn't know that she was going to be in this, so I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, I got nothing else.
Oh, I thought it was neat. I thought it was a cool throwback, and I liked it because it reminded me of the one that they did in the Hulk, the one that I liked that no one else liked.
Lou
where,
Ferrigno?
where Lou Ferrigno was like a security guard, and he just like walked past, and like, it's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right. So I think that does it for Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entertaining. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a fun movie. I mean, I have issues with it, but it's fun.
It's a fun movie that I don't think I'll watch again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that statement.
So make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at You Have to Watch This Podcast. You can listen to us on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts. Wait, no. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, the iHeartRadio app, Amazon Music, and Alexa, and TuneIn Radio. For You Have to Watch This Podcast, I'm Alan,
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devin.
and we'll see you next week. Actually, no. We'll see you later this week because we have 3 episodes for this week. So
This is a busy week.
it is. So we'll see you in a few days.